All right, let's cut the fat. We all know what this is. You saw the title of the video. You saw the thumbnail. I don't know what world you possibly have to be in to not know that this is the Harness Players Podcast, unless we were just thrusted onto you. In which case, I mean, I hope you enjoy what's about to come up. We're going to talk about some good horse racing, some good harness horse racing over at Yonkers Raceway, upcoming this Monday, April the 27th. We've been following every single week of the MGM Borgata Series here on the show, and we have finally reached what's anatomically correct the fifth and final leg of this horse racing stakes series. We're going to talk about the contenders. I don't know. We're going to talk about the pretenders. No one's really pretending inside of this series. Every horse is going out there doing their own thing. We're going to see what type of bets may lie inside of these races and which possible horses may look like lies of bets. I'm done with this intro. You know what this is. We talked about it. You know, Mikey P's here. You know, Edison Hatter's here. This is the show that's been happening every single week. But one thing that's different this time around, we got points to go over what happened over the last 4 weeks, including what we're looking at into the final preliminary of this series. I made this handy dandy graphic that, yes, usually gets posted elsewhere, but, we had to take some matters into our own hands. And this here, currently, the picture of what we're looking at heading into the final leg of this Borgata Series. Last week's preliminary winners, Mosdale Ben, Howlin' the Hills, Captain Albano. They safely, it seems like, secured their spots into the final. We got a couple of horses that are in positions that they might not necessarily like to be. I guess first and foremost in this conversation, Mike, looking at how the standings are currently, they're, to me, two glaring horses that are going to need a specific type of performance out of this fifth leg for what it seems like they want to do. I think of Coach's Corner, who's currently on the outside looking in, stuck in the consolation in, I believe that's 10th place on the standings, got to be top 8 for the final. And then an interesting one, if we're talking consolation for a longer 4-year-old season, we see Twisted Destiny also within reach of potentially reaching the consolation. Those two, I imagine you feel, are probably key angles going into this fifth leg, but do you see any others that may be wanting to go for a particularly strong effort?
Well, the bottom two in the final, I think those are the ones that are most vulnerable. And, Sweet Beach Life has raced very well. Coach Corner has to jump him too. So it's not like that he only has to beat one horse. I mean, there's some dynamics there. And Donegal Luther's drawn inside. He's 2-1 in his, elimination this week. So he certainly could provide some points and provide, some angst to some of those horses trying to get into the final. As far as the consolation, I mean, Verdun, Twisted Destiny. I mean, even, my type, he's not in this week, so he can't get in. But I think that the fields are pretty well set. There's a little bit of shuffling that may go on in the bottom. The horses in the middle of the consolation, they're probably not going anywhere. So, but look, I mean, you have it all set. All 16 horses in the top 16 spots are in this week. All 18, actually, in the top 18. So,
right. And it seems like then from just getting into any of these races, Ed, whether it be the final or consolation, at least for our handicapping sense, if there is much angle to how aggressive these connections might be, it looks like you're probably wanting to win more than finish second or third if your goal is to break into something like the consolation or final.
Thank you, Ray. The horse's goal is to win, not be second or third. That's a very deep thought. We should clarify, by the way, the 25s that you have listed here for leg 5, those are horses that are entered to race. So obviously, if they scratch, they won't be getting these points, et cetera, et cetera. The zeros are ones that aren't entered. So they, for sure, we know, are going to be where they are. And, I think this is a rarity that all of the top 16 are entered in this final week. So everybody has the chance to continue to move up here. The only ones eliminated at this point are those that obviously aren't in the consolation yet and aren't racing this week. So we know for sure we won't see them on May 8th, barring a bunch of defections from the finals in the consolation. But, I think when you look at the standings, the way you can read into it is two things for me. Coach's Corner is going to be handled very aggressively because we were doing the math on this. Chase H. Hanover's in that same race as him. If Captain Albano beats Coach's Corner to get the 75 points, and Coach's Corner gets second for 50 points, and JJ Chandler gets third for 37 points. That's a 30-point difference. They're 1 point apart. JJ Chandler's still in front. So it's pretty darn crucial to Coach's Corner to basically get a win this week. I mean, if he does not win this race, there's still, look, a lot of ways this can work out mathematically. Starting with JJ Chandler not even being third, it could be, way behind. There's a lot of other ways this can work out. But at the end of the day, he really needs a win. And yeah, I think that battle for the last spot in the consolation is kind of intriguing too when you look at that. Twisted Destiny, of course, the opportunity to move up. But come on, I told you, Health Experience going to draw that rail in that final, show some speed in that consolation, get the job done there. So he's got to pick up some points this week to make sure he secures that spot in the consolation. But yeah, that'll be interesting to know too. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Twisted Destiny, does have the outside post 7. So that's unfortunately a little bit of a negative for him. But yeah, definitely some interesting things to watch as we come down the home stretch here towards the finals.
And we haven't even mentioned Verdun. He's also on the outside looking in. And he seems like a type who has just been outclassed through the entirety of the series. But looking at the competitors that seem likely for that consolation, he would be an interesting fringe player, depending on how.
Outclassed is a bad term for him because he's made $800,000. He's been outposted a couple of the weeks for sure. So
and he's been
fast races. I mean,
it's more specifically to say that he needs the race to go his specific way. He can meet the opportunity. He definitely hasn't had the opportunity arise, but even in some of the places where he had an inside draw, he was very easily just a third or a fourth. And so in that respect,
one time he drew inside, he finished second, and then he got the 6th hole against Hunt in the last dollar. He kicked 26 and 3, but he was 6th because he made up 4 lengths in the stretch. I mean, that's not a bad effort. Then he was, in the 4 hole in the Mostel Ben race when they went, 50 and 1. I mean, he wasn't going to make up ground in that race, so it didn't suit him. And then he was in the 7 hole last week. So what did you expect him to do? I mean, I don't understand. Like, he's been fine. He's just been, has had some bad luck in this series.
Well, I mean, luck aside, that is a worthy point. I think it goes towards the fact that if he doesn't have to be in the races of Mosdale Benz and Captain Albano's, he may be able to he might have a better shot at getting the race that he needs, which in that respect to me feels like at this point he's been outclassed. Other horses have been able to take the initiative. He's always been that one-way type, and he's been putting in his races. But again, that's probably not a next week conversation because the final is Friday, May the 8th. We got these races for Monday, April the 27th.
I will say, Ray, this is kind of a next week conversation, but a quick point. Okay. Coach's Corner is the key, though. If Coach's Corner does not escape the consolation, he's going to be 1-9. He will be a heavy, heavy favorite over the group he faces in the consolation if he doesn't get out of it.
Yeah, in some ways, we might be rooting for him to win just to make the consolation a more interesting betting race.
And he also will take money in the final for sure if he makes it to the final. So, I think everybody should be kind of rooting, including connections. Coach's Corner's connections want to race in the final again. So, I think everybody should be rooting for him to hopefully get in there.
All right, because it's a $500,000 pot. The older pacer, we were talking about this. They don't get an opportunity to purse like this for. I don't even. It's quite a while. I mean, the Dan Patch is what, 300,000 now.
The Kane Pace is probably around that number.
The Kane Pace is for 3-year-olds.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're talking about the other Kane Pace at Batavia. My mistake. Yeah.
I'm not thinking about the Kane. I guess I'm on the right day. What's the race for older pacers on Hamiltonian?
Well, the Sam McKee, that's typically around 200. So okay. This is to say that outside of the Breeders' Crown, this is one of the bigger pots they get to chase as free-for-all pacers, and then everything else are these, still good races for 300 and so on and so forth, but definitely want to get into the final if they can. Let's talk about the field for this first division. It's race number 3 on Monday. Just looking at the standings, quite clear that Mosdale Ben comfortable in making the final to, I believe, try to defend his title. I don't know why, for whatever reason, I thought he didn't win it last year, but definitely back on the right track. There were questions about what he'd have to offer coming into the series this year, and I think Marone told it, not that he would tell us a lie, but you always wonder just what things might go what way. He thought that Mosdale Ben was 90%, and certainly this horse has been getting better and better and showing. I feel something more interesting, Mike. The fact that he was a stout closer in pretty much every race last year, and now they're trying to put him into play. That's probably been the most intriguing change inside of this whole series. And now he has this pylon post with all those points. Do you think that Marone tries to just keep going towards the front because he's got company calling on the outside there and hunting the last dollar?
I don't know. He might take a trip this week. I mean, what he has proven is he's the fastest horse right now. And he can go the front, especially from these inside posts, and dominate these races, and nobody can get close to him. Whereas last year, they sort of took their time, but then he could just live on the outside forever and grind everybody down. So he was the fastest horse last year. He's the fastest horse this year. I do think that this is kind of a layup, but if you remember last year in a late leg of the series, they raced him conservatively. He ended up second. I do think that could be a possibility, but really, I mean, is anybody going to beat him here besides hunting the last dollar? I mean, he's no worse than second off the gate here, and they're probably 1-2 around the racetrack. This isn't a race that I cannot get involved in really to bet. You're just kind of watching, looking for clues for the final. The rest of them maybe will be trying to battle out, but why not now to even show up in one of the legs last week? It was in an overnight race. I mean, so it's just, I don't know. It's way too top heavy here. This is really not a bettable race.
Well, that begs a question that we've been getting into the weeds on maybe a bit too much, but I think is pertinent in this race specifically. If you're given odds that are quite similar between Mosdale Ben and hunting the last dollar, do you think that there's room for hunting the last dollar to be value inside of this spot? Or do you think he's just going to take his typical play and you can't really separate between the two of them?
I think he's value. I think he's a second choice. Okay. I think he blasts off. Is he 6-5, 7-5? I don't know. Mosdale Ben could be 1-9 in here. I mean, hunting the last dollar was 1-9 last week in his division. He ended up fourth. He was raced conservatively. We did talk about that being a very big possibility in that race, if you recall. I didn't make the clip, but I mean, we did say that was possible. This week, I do think in this short field with his gate speed and what he's in with, that he's got to be 1 too early. And if you're going to take one or the other, I would take him.
Well, the important thing to note is that Bartlett wanted to go in that prelim. If we pull up the replay here, you'll see that specifically what happens is Matt Kakali with Howlin' the Hills. He kind of comes outside, and that forces Jason to take back because otherwise he's hooking wheels with Howlin' the Hills going into the first turn. So, Mike, I agree. Jason opts to race off the speed tactically, but I would argue that he was probably forced into that spot and still raced fairly evenly. This also points to the potential that he takes more money than we think, because other people, if they watch the replay, they may see that same trip trouble that may make him more appealing. But Ed, do those qualifications matter when Mosdale Ben is the best horse in the series and he gets the best draw in the race?
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. I mean, Mosdale Ben does draw so well here in this race. He continues, on an upward trajectory. And I'm hoping I'm quoting this correct. I think this is correct if somebody wants to fact check me. But I believe last year we saw him in every leg as well. And I believe trainer Peter Tritton kind of said, somewhat of an intentional plan, right? I mean, the Borgata used to be the final prelim on a Monday. Then the following Monday was the final. Now it's that Friday. So you get the extra, 4 or 5 days. So I think just, this horse is sharp right now. Let's keep him sharp. Let's keep him racing. So I think this really is kind of a spot where he probably just takes control early and just kind of jogs around the track. We've seen him do. He clearly is it fair to say the best at this point? If it's not the best, definitely one of the best in the series, who's going to be, like I said, I think taking this race in and getting ready towards the final. But what I will say is, and I'm going to test your video skills because I didn't tell you this was coming, but, in addition to my tight 5 minutes here on Airline Food, I'd like to talk a little bit about Mosdale Ben race 2 weeks ago at the top of the stretch, Ray. It appears he had a bit of an incident, and if you have the video, we can talk about it, watch the replay over and over again and talk about it for another 10 minutes again. No, but I do. I think it's Mosdale Ben's race. I tell you who's interesting underneath. Michael, I'm sure agree with me. Mike and I last week, we were both really high on Catalpa Rescue. Thank you. This could really take a step forward. Mike and I both said we really liked what we saw in the previous weeks. Ray, you said we were both crazy, and as you can see, first up, the horse was given a legitimate effort, obviously tired late, but no, credit where credit's due, Ray. You were correct with that horse. It scared me for a while, and he really did travel well. And, from post 5 this week, Colin Kelly now drives. I'm wondering if this horse doesn't end up, with even just a little bit better of a trip, some sort of cover that outer flow, I think it could become a piece underneath. I don't know if you're willing to go back to the horse again, but you're going to get another massive price. I think it's a possibility, but like I said, I do think the top two in this race are so far above the rest, and especially with Hunt the Last Dollar, considering the desperation to some extent. I mean, I think he's an okay spot regardless, but he definitely would love to get more points. So I think he's going to be, anxious to get the points. Mostel Ben with that inside post, barring, total disaster, I think he's pretty clearly going to be in a top two spot at the finish line. So it's kind of tough to get around those two.
I mean, even if Hunt the Last Dollar finished fourth or fifth, I think, mathematically speaking, he's still in the final. Not that that's really that likely. I do want to point out, you guys kept mentioning the races that Mostel Ben lost in the series last year. Worth remembering, he was first up in both of those races. I'm going to double check on the second one. Yes, I'm right. Specific speeds that he had to hunt down. This is to say, Hunt in the Last Dollar, we know, is going to want to go to the front. If he gets a breather or something like that, we've seen Mostel Ben has already been foiled twice in this series past. Coach's Corner last year, Coach's Corner was able to wire Mostel Ben going first up, and more significantly, and I think this is what makes the point interesting inside of this race to maybe side with Hunt in the Last Dollar if he's a few points higher than Mostel Ben. Chase H. Hanover wired Mostel Ben. And the start of this whole series, we were talking about how that horse only does one thing well inside of this whole series. It's go to the lead, get some soft fractions, take him all the way. Obviously, he's probably a little slower this year, Chase H, than he was last year, but I think it represents the potential principle in the way of Mostel Ben inside of this spot. But a key difference is if he sits a pocket instead of going first up. You could argue pocket is either more beneficial or less because it comes down to who's first up. And this is what I was thinking about with Catalpa Rescue specifically, Ed. There's not much speed early, and I worry that this is a race that goes a pretty soft half in the high 56, low 57. You saw in the Sweet Beach Life race, I believe, last week. He got a pretty soft first half. That turned into a sprint to the end, though Twisted Destiny was in that race, right? And he still made up some pretty good ground. Nonetheless, Catalpa Rescue second up inside of a race like that. I don't know anyone's really gaining ground. I do worry that this is as simple as a 6-1-2 or a 1-6-2. Like, it might just come in as it lines up because Celtic Spirit, he hasn't shown that he wants to be a wild card. But if there were a time, it might be this one when he is on the cusp of losing a spot in the consolation, but also has been doing okay racing from off the speed. I'm a perfect choice. We know what he is at this point. He's just going to sit and do what he wants. And really, like Mike said, it's kind of tricky unless you can accept Hunt in the Last Dollar as like a 6-5 shot inside of a race like this to say Mostel Ben's 3-5, 2-5, if that's hypothetically what it is. I don't really know that there's much leeway to do anything else. Is that safe to say for either of you?
I think that's valid. I mean, I think it will depend, though. Mike said 1-9. I don't think Mostel Ben could be 1-9, but he could be pretty short here. I mean, he was already shorter than Hunt the Last Dollar to begin with 2 starts ago, and he beat him pretty soundly, right? And now you draw post 1 versus the outside posts with them. So not only the most recent result between these two, plus the post positions, you could get a fair price on Hunt the Last Dollar if you just want to take him on the win end. The problem is, really no one else here is going to take money. Celtic Spirit is going to be probably the most desperate one in this race, though, for the record. I mean, again, I don't know if the desperation is going to magically make him step up in skill level, but in talent level, but he definitely is clinging to the edge of that consolation. And as we found out before the show, last year there was that eligibles race. There will be no eligibles race this year in the May 8th card. So therefore your 2 options are this consolation or the final. So I'm sure Celtic Spirit would like to be a part of it.
And if they didn't have that race last year, that traditionally was just a thing they did, even back to when it was the George Morton Levy series. But that's really the scope of the race. It could be a pretty straightforward opener to the Monday Borgata action. I think, tell me if I'm wrong, Mike, you're probably more excited about the second division. I mean, by default compared to the first, but we got some humdingers inside of this one. Redwood Hanover, the 5-2 Morning Line's second choice, was put into a tough spot against Captain Albano in that Sweet Beach Life race. Again, just not going to be able to make up much ground. Donegal Luther raced okay off of a pocket trip, but very he was definitely well beaten by Mostel Ben and Coach's Corner. Soho Firestone has just been really good all series long. Again, was just in the bad side of that slow first half. And most importantly, at 12-1 on the morning line with points needed to make the consolation, Twisted Destiny, I think he's the wild card. He's got to be the wild card here, right?
I've liked him a lot. I liked him last week. He got almost 12-1, and he just didn't quite have enough. Now, he was soundly beaten there by Howell in the Hills, and really, he didn't have much of an excuse. I mean, an off-the-pace trip at Yonkers isn't easy, and he had to grind. He finished up nicely. I do think the Lasix benefited him, but now he's drawn in the parking lot in a race filled with speed. I mean, he's likely to be last in here early. I mean, there's just really no two ways around it. Now, can he get them to hook up early? Maybe, because Sweet Beach Life is the absolute key to this race. He is racing much better. Those last 2 second-place finishes, I mean, he just missed. Now, he wasn't beating Captain Albano last week, but he raced very well versus him, and he certainly handled Soho Firestone last week. So what does Kakele do? Does he blast off? Because he can, and he just might. I don't know who else is going to go in here. They could hook up early and maybe set it up for Twisted Destiny late. He's going to need help to get himself into this race. But this is a very good betting race, and there's, Donegal Luther needs points to stay in the final. That's something that he's going to be trying very hard, especially from an inside post. And he gets a new driver also. You got Jordan Stratton showing up on here. This is going to be a wild race. I do think this is probably the best betting race of the 3 this weekend. I don't know. I'd be curious to see what the board looks like, because I'd be interested in these outside horses that need points, that need things to happen. Maybe Sweet Beach Life, if you can get a price, he might be worth taking, especially if over 10-1.
I mean, Twisted Destiny, he went that back half in about 55-1. He was mostly uncovered in that whole pursuit. Did get a little bit of cover late when II Captain pulled to the outside, but he's, again, like I agree. He's probably behind the ball here, which is weird considering we know that he has speed to use on smaller tracks. He used that to good effect in the Adios, but when you're 3 versus being 4, it's not necessarily the same.
Driver here too. The big boys are out of town, so
that's right. They're all at Oak Grove for Monday, hoping to not get washed out. But I definitely feel like the 2 and 3 are going to be firing out of here. I don't know that it's going to be that likely that the race gets pretty hot.
What's Redwood do? What's he do?
Win the race.
You think you really are going with him after that 4th place finish last time?
I'm going back to him. Where can you remind me real quick, Ray? Where does Redwood Hanover sit in the point standings?
Redwood Hanover is 3rd at 258, so he's pretty
I didn't
safe.
know he was that high up. Okay, I knew he was probably good. I didn't know he was that good. Okay. So I agree with Michael Twisted Destiny. I think he's probably worth watching the rest of the season. He's just turned 4, right? He's kind of getting this chance now against these older horses. He'll obviously hook up with them, I'm sure, later on in the year, and I think do very well, honestly, as he continues to build into this 4-year-old season. But at this point, I think it's probably going to be too little too late for him, especially considering the way this draw worked out, the way that I think the trip's going to work out. I get the suspicion he probably comes up short of the consolation is my suspicion. But regardless, like I said, worth watching down the road. Then, considering what's left, so Firestone was, I thought, a pretty even 3rd last time out, right? Donegal Luther was obviously well beaten behind Coach's Corner and the Mostel Ben. And then, Redwood wasn't super great in the Albano race either, but it's kind of like those 3 have clearly been the ones taking money at times throughout the series. So what do you want to do with those 3? It's probably one of those 3, most likely 3 winners. And like I said, I think, like you said, there's a lot of speed in this race. I think Redwood gets the benefit of drawing inside of Sweet Beach Life, gets the benefit of drawing inside Twisted Destiny. Obviously, then is outside of everybody else, the post 5, but hopefully can try to secure some sort of spot early. And I think when you just look back at some of those starts, like look at the start, even 3 back when he was able to get the lead there from post 4. Again, it was obviously a very short price, but I think when he's gotten to the lead in the series, he's done really good things. And the starts we've seen with him with Perenglam, he's been with Per has been very good at times. I don't know. I just think it's a race he can win. And I think that, not to take us down another 25-minute conversational betting odds, but how do they bet this race? Those 3 definitely are the 3 shortest, right? We know that. I think there's a lot of room for discussion, though, on what exactly shapes out between those 3, though. I think just about anything could happen. They could all be very easily in that 8-5, 9-5, 2-1, 5-2, 3-1, 4-1 kind of range. Like, they're all going to be somewhere there. It's just a matter of who gets what number, right?
This is an instant where I think the best course of action some ways the path of least resistance. Who's the best price out of the three? We all know the answer, so let's just say it on three all together, okay? Who's going to be the highest price of the three, the 2, 3, and 5? On three. 1, 2, 3. Soho Firestone. I think you said Soho Firestone.
I said it. Mike said it too in spirit. So
I think that it's case closed there. This horse has been in form, and while he was well beaten in that 54 and change sprint, I do want to bring up that race because I thought it was interesting the effort he was putting in. We're going to fast forward.
We'll see Redwood as well, by the way, in this race.
Yeah, Redwood is first up there, right to the outside of Soho Firestone. But this is the thing that I've liked. Soho Firestone is the 3 horse. Every single race, the horse that's to his side, he's putting away. He's constantly winning inside of those spots.
I don't think he put away Redwood. I mean, Redwood was...
I thought he was bad last week, honestly.
Redwood was first up for a decent... You thought Redwood was bad?
No, I thought Soho was bad last week.
Yeah, I mean, Redwood was first up for some amount of time. I don't know if he really put the horse away, Ray. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, let's watch that again. So they turn for home. Yes, he's first
but back up here.
Back up to where Redwood starts first up.
Yeah,
all right.
He had no excuse here. Like, why is he gapping on the top 2, and allowing the 4 into the race here at all?
And look at the fractions too. That was a 29-3 second quarter. So now you've got Redwood coming first up through this third quarter with reasonable fractions. We've just started the sprint home for this point. It just kind of became a merry-go-round, right? I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4 at 3 quarters, 1, 2, 3, 4 at the finish. Could Redwood have gotten past Soho? I mean, in theory, but again, I don't think he put him away as much as he was just sitting there first up there with slow fractions.
He had much better trip. Much better.
Okay, you guys are clearly not seeing this. Let's watch when Scotty calls upon Soho. They're neck and neck right now. Whip comes out on Soho Firestone, and look at how quickly he immediately starts gaining ground
on who?
Redwood Hanover. on Redwood Hanover. He puts up half a length. Within a tap or 2 of the whip.
Because he's been first up for a while. He's tired. Hey, Ray, wait, one more time. Let's see the gap between the top 2 and Soho Firestone.
Yes, that's a good thing to look at.
Mike, Ray's right here. Look, Mike. Scott goes to that whip, and look at the ground he's gaining on Captain Albano. I mean, he is gaining ground on Albano immediately when Scott goes to that whip, isn't he, Mike?
Yeah.
You guys are looking. You guys are looking at this too one-dimensionally because what the point here, look back to his first 2 wins in the series. When he gets close and he gets towards the lead, that racing style works. He was put into a tough spot sitting back in third, and he put in the same race.
Why did he put in a tough spot? Like, why was that a tough spot where he was? He was fine. If he was any good, he would have followed the one off the
change. They sprinted home in 54 and
he did no work whatsoever. He did no work. He sat through the entire race. He did what?
Those first 2 wins. Let's be real. Him and Donegal Luther are both kind of falling in that bucket of we're not really sure who they've beaten. So Firestone was 1-5 in both of those first 2 races. He kind of did what he was supposed to against them.
I don't care if he's 100.
This was his chance against those top horses, and look what happened.
And he's not in against any of them.
No, he's in against. But I mean, this isn't an easy.
Aside from Sweet Beach Life,
Sweet Beach Life smoked him last time. Smoked him.
But do you see Sweet Beach Life getting the front here and doing the same thing?
It's very possible with Kakele that he blasts off. I think he needs points. He needs to get into the final. He's going to be very aggressive with his horse. I like him a lot in this race.
I don't though. I think Bartlett goes with Redwood, right?
Yeah. Who else would he even have a choice of in this race?
So I guess what I'm getting at then is how fast can Kakele really get out of there? I think him and Twisted Destiny are somewhere towards the back for early on. I mean, I guess
especially after what Kakele did to him on Hunting the Last Dollar.
The best gate driver at this. I mean, honestly, he's going to get him out. He's going forward. I bet you whatever you want.
I am just making the case that Soho Firestone. He's been good pretty much the whole series, was at the bad side of a sprint home last time. I think the pace dynamics of this race are going to be much different. And especially Donegal Luther has proven himself to be virtually the same horse as Soho Firestone. And he's probably going to take more money because of the idea that he's going to get to the lead somehow from post 3, because that's what he's just been doing with Gingras driving.
I think where we can leave it, Ray, and not drag on forever and ever is this is the classy example of, I think we all 3 have different opinions, but we're going to find out pretty quickly who's right in the sense that, this game, I forget who told me this first, though. I think it might have been Dave Brower of the Meadowlands, but I'm pretty sure it was actually. this game would be so much easier if you could tell me how they lined up at the quarter, and I would pick a lot more winners, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of those classic races. If you told all of us right now what the order is at the quarter, I think we'd all have very different opinions and probably come to a consensus on what's going to happen, right? I mean, if Sweet Beach Life actually does blast out and gets the lead, I've got a very different opinion. I don't think he does. Mike thinks he does, right? I mean, so I think that's really where this race is won and lost, is what exactly does happen in that first quarter off the gate, what time is put up on that board, and who is.
Well, and Mike, tell me this, and I apologize if I missed it. By that argument, I think you have to agree that Sweet Beach Life is a bet in that race.
I think so. I think
Okay.
he's a fantastic bet. I want him. I play the outside 3. I think I would pitch the 2 and the 3 in here.
But do you think Twisted Destiny just does it from well off the pace, or do you think
I think he can get a piece of it. He has to, right? He has to come from way off of it. But I mean, at least he's going to be a price. He's second Lasix. He's going to be closing. I think he can hit the exact. If he wins it, that would be. I mean, it was something probably really has to happen. But I mean, I prefer long shots in this race. So I think it's those 2.
Key matchup then in the final division, race number 6, Coach's Corner. He needs to win. Captain Albano. I mean, winning would be nice, but if we're talking points wise, he's safely in the final at 245. So I even think just getting a third or anything like tell me if I'm wrong, Ed, on the math. If you're over 200, you're probably safe on the leaderboard.
I would need to see the exact math. What's the 8th place horse?
The 8th place horse is 197. And this is including the 25 starting points. So there's only 50 extra points to gain maximum.
Yeah, you're probably. I mean, especially part of the problem too is again, and not to discount anybody, but when we start to go through it, who's in 8th place right now? We're about to talk about Chase H. Hanover, right? Presumably, again, never know, racing's racing, but 20-1 morning line outside post. Presumably, he's not going to pick up a whole bunch of points, so he's, I think, very vulnerable to drop out of that final. So for anybody that's, that at this point that's in 6th or 5th place or higher, it would take a lot of things to go wrong for you to not have picked up a few points, your starting points, everything else to be able to secure your spot in the final. So yeah, it'll be difficult to have too much movement. Chase H. Hanover's the most desperate one of all, I guess, for points in the series. But again, I don't think desperation in this case is going to overcome post or talent.
Well, I feel like he probably is better fitted for the constellation.
I'll rephrase that, though. Who's more desperate than him? Coach's Corner in this race.
Mm-hmm.
And,
I mean, that's how this all started, yeah.
And I think that alone is probably how Coach's Corner wins this race. I mean, look at what Captain Albano did from the outside post 2 and 3 starts ago, right? He just kind of got taken back to about 4th there, just kind of finished 4th 2 starts ago, was able to get the win then, 3 starts ago, and did it very nicely, by the way. But this just feels like a spot where I think Coach's Corner just, acts like a desperate horse because he is very much so one. He gets to this lead, and I just don't think he relinquishes it. I just think Coach's Corner is going to win this race because of the circumstances that he has to. But I think it's kind of bet that way. I think everybody kind of sees that. Everybody kind of knows that. And I think it's going to reflect in your price on him. I think he's going to be shorter than he would be in a straight-up race per se. But because of the circumstances, I think he needs this win. He gets it, but it's probably at a shorter price than a regular day.
Yeah, I can't really – I mean – now, Captain Albano is probably not value inside of this spot. Even a 2-5 last time, we knew that he was probably a slam dunk from the pylon post. But Mike, just with this outside draw, it seems like the way to approach betting this race would probably be going against Captain Albano out of the top 2.
Yes, I would try to fade him on the exacta if you can. I do think that he's in the final, and we see how he's been raced in this series. He's been opportunistic. The Leg 2 win was very sharp. Then the other races, like he wasn't losing last week. There's no chance he was losing that. And I kicked 26-3, and he got it done. But it's not like that he blew everything away. He was never losing, but they don't need to win the spot. And there's other horses that do. I would say try to fade him and look to others. Look to Coach's Corner, maybe over a Howlin' Hills exacta, or maybe even try to get the 1 or the 2 in there and an exacta here. I do think that has possibilities for sure, just the way that this race shapes. Chase H, he's the key, right? I mean, he's got to go. He's in the outside post. He needs points. I wouldn't be surprised if Barnes Jr. blasts off with him and tries to secure a spot early. If he does, he becomes very interesting as far as maybe an exacta or a tri player because he's got class to him. He has a win in the leg of this series. And, if you take the 6 out and think that he's not really trying, Howlin' Hills really doesn't need points. He becomes a lot more interesting, but I don't know. I mean, I think he's up against it.
I think the work Chase H has to do just out of post 7, once landing on the lead, that the entire race is going to fall apart. And from there, I agree it's more interesting, but you definitely want to just be betting for whatever kind of chaos. Oh, I thought that someone was saying something. The thing that pops out to me, at least for other betting purposes, and we somewhat alluded to this at the open of the show, Verdun now has an inside draw and is 20-1 on the morning line. Mike, I know you mentioned him being one you want to try and sneak onto the ticket. Do we like? I don't know that he's going to be that obscene of a price, especially in the verticals. I have to imagine that sharps are going to lock in on the potential he has from this spot. Do we really see him like bolstering the exotics that much, or does he actually take some play here?
I think it does bolster because you still have people that are going to play a 3-6 exacta. You still have the 5 going to be getting more money than he is. I think the 4 and the 1 probably get more money than he does, even with the morning line. So yeah, I do think if he gets in the ticket, it's not going to be overwhelming, but it will be better than those 3, 4, 5, different horses. So yeah, I do want him in the second and third slots. Maybe not the third spot. I mean, the third spot, you're right. It probably doesn't make it, like pay as much as you would think for a 20-1 shot. But if he would happen to get in the exacta spot, totally different story.
Well, and I mean, that comes down to the idea of beating the 6 out of the number. Because even if the third choice gets second, that try, it multiplies. Not double, but it definitely goes up.
Where's Howell in the Hills in the points? Which I should clarify. Not points are obviously important. They're not. We've asked a lot about points. Not like this is the only thing we factor off of. But where's Howell in the Hills?
Well, we'll take a
quick
quick
middle
look.
of the road in the final.
He is in 7th at 224. Which I mean,
so he, I'm willing to say, is pretty safe. Barring disaster, he's pretty safe. It's Donegal Luther and Chase H. Hanover that are kind of the bubble horses there, depending on what happens with Coach's Corner and Sweet Beach Life. But
right.
What I would say for this race then in terms of underneath is I think there is a universe where Howell in the Hills and Captain Albano both kind of take somewhat conservative paths. If they go that route, Verdun does sprint home pretty well, but he's definitely not getting around II Captain early. And again, I just think Bartlett, once he gets this lead, he's probably going to turn this into a pure sprint home. So I kind of like II Captain to just sit that pocket and just finish second, 1-2 around the track.
Not bad. Not a bad idea.
Especially Brent Holland has been a lot more aggressive with II Captain. And I think he's locked on to this horse needing a helmet after he tried to go first up a few weeks ago, and that kind of biting him in the rear. This horse has been. Yeah.
If he just lets Coach's Corner go into that first turn and just sit on his bumper the whole way around the track, what's wrong with that?
From there, then that becomes an interesting idea of like, if you get II Captain second, that all your tries, I think, are a lot more colorful. Say Verdun somehow gets third.
And it could be Verdun for third then, because it could just be 3-1-2 around the track. We could take it out one position further if you really want. I mean, I think Albano and Howell in the Hills will still be showing something late. They're not going to just totally lay down, obviously. But again, I think they're going to be kind of like Redwood was last week, going to be kind of coming into it there first up, slow-ish kind of fractions from Coach's Corner. And again, I think that just kind of dictates the race at that point.
I mean, just the fact, the key part of this also is Captain Albano in that race he won 3 weeks ago. He was first up in that 55-3 back half and gobbling up ground. But the competition here probably a bit tighter than it being against Redwood Hanover, Sweet Beach Life. He's got a reel in a Coach's Corner this time around. So
that was still a good effort, though. That's what I said. I mean,
but that's my point.
That's
my point. If he gets away 6th or 7th, he could still somehow hit the tip. This is just to recognize that even though there might be a positional advantage, this might not necessarily play out of Stratton's hands necessarily, because he has a horse that can push into that action. But then part of the bet is how much do we think that going first up this time won't work compared to how good he was when he did it weeks ago.
So
this is probably the final point on this race.
No, I'm going to take the Ray Cotolo job and just move one further than that. So Friday, May 8th, our next show, we're going to be live for the finals, 6:45 p.m. first time. We get 4 big races, and actually there'll probably be an invitation or two. Should be a good racing card at Yonkers that night. It'll be the Borgata final, the Ursula McIntyre final, formerly the Blue Chip Matchmaker Series, and then the consolations for each of those 2 races. 6:45 first post time. Pick 5, no official word yet on a guarantee, but, there always is one. We'll look forward to that. It should be a good pool for that Friday night. I mean, again, it'll be a good card. I'm sure all 4 of those big races will probably be included in that sequence, so it'll be a very, very good betting opportunity. You have Edison Hatter and Peter Venaglia on the desk hosting the show. We will have our live stream going on somewhere in the middle of that card, and I will hopefully do a little bit of double duty and get some content for us there from the back paddock, but while Peter and I are doing the show. And we also have MMA fighter Charles Oliveira coming back to Yonkers. Now, last time he took on Tim Tetrick heads up in a match race. This time they're going to have teams, and it's going to be a 4v4 competition, and this should be something exciting to pay attention to. It's between races 4 and 5, so that should help grow the Pick 5 pool, and also give something to look forward to before those big races really get underway. And I'm saying this in sincerity. I wish I had a screenshot to remember exactly what book it was, but an Australian bookmaker, the last time this match race happened, actually offered odds on this race. And Tetrick was, of course, 1-5, and Oliveira was like 4-1, and of course, it was a charity match race, so Oliveira beat Tetrick by slimmest of margins on the wire. He just got there, so I'm sure the max limit was not very high on that, but somebody who bet Oliveira on that probably did pretty well. But anyway, it should be a great night of racing when it comes to that Borgata final. And we're excited to continue our partnership within the Money Media with Yonkers the rest of the way. We thank the SOA, of course, and MGM Yonkers for their support through this series. And we look forward to hopefully rejoining with them again later when we come around to Messenger Time, as well as the Yonkers Trot for the first legs of the Triple Crown Series. And, of course, the International Trot. And the International Trot, yeah, I'm totally taking your job at this point, Ray. You can probably just disappear. International Trot, of course, in September. We see all those European horses. Mike, we got them. We got the Elite Lop hats. I'm just thinking about it. My first year there in 23, we got program. We got to watch Honeck win, right? Then you get Honeck on the program the next year, and then it was Horsey Dream. Then you got Horsey Dream on the program last year, and then it ends up being Go On Boy. So is this the year? Do I finally get to see a Swedish winner?
Maybe. I'm sure they're all hoping for it. It'll certainly be exciting. I need to brush up on some of my international racing leading up to these next few weeks, but we'll definitely be locked and loaded and ready for that weekend. So I love that race. It's so much fun, and these horses. I somehow found the winner last year, but it's a tough day, but it's a lot of fun, and I'm sure you have a lot of fun over there. I love seeing you on the broadcast because I think you bring so much to it, and I need to get over there. Really, that's what the thing is I got to get there.
Yeah, looking forward to being there in person again this year for sure. It should be another great year. We're starting to slowly assemble these fields. We've got about now a month. Now, it's interesting this year. We should note that normally this race is held the day before Memorial Day. The big day at Harris Philly is normally on the same day. Different this year. It's the last Sunday in May. So since Sunday, May 31st is after Memorial Day, it's an extra week later than usual in some sense. So pay attention to that. It'll be Sunday, May 31st. And it means we're about a month and a week away from it at this point. And we're starting to assemble the field. 7 of 16 horses invited so far. And, Mike, we got some pretty good standouts in there so far. Go On Boy, of course, last year's champion, will return. Ideal de Tiar has, of course, been very good down in France. I believe the start we saw from him in Sweden obviously didn't go so well for Elite Lop. We'll see how he ships this time, how that works out. Massimo Hoist for Finland, A Fair Day, will be back again representing Sweden. Job Sport as well to represent Sweden in Excess Bleu coming from France. And a horse we should all be familiar with, Mike. We're going to get to see Allegiant on the elite stage for trainer Daniel Redean. And, of course, we know the season that she had here in the States with, I believe, Linda Toscano a few seasons ago, and then was just eye-catching in her first couple starts there in Sweden. And very interested to see how she'll do against this level of competition. And obviously, we saw Joviality in the elite race a few years ago, too. So it's kind of nice when we get those U.S.-type connections kind of help us feel a little more familiar with this race. Yeah,
that's very exciting for Allegiant to be in there. Elio de Tillard has struggled in Sweden, certainly. And so that one shows up. I don't know. I mean, maybe one to play against. But the fact that Allegiant's in there will bring a little more buzz, I think, a little more American eyes to the race. And then it would be nice to see how that she's going, when it comes to that big weekend, because she was phenomenal. Was it when did she race last year? Was it the Elite Day that she showed up last year, or was it on one?
She started a little bit before that. I think about this time, actually, might have exactly been this week. Like the last week in April, I think was her first start domestically there in Sweden, and then she continued on throughout the rest of the year, and I believe did race Elite Weekend Saturday, I believe.
Yeah, so it's, again, we'll see how the field shapes up. I'll try to, maybe we can get some articles in the newsletter from you. We've done that in the past couple of years too, to maybe get the preview going. And then we'll have our show, our typical show for that weekend.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, as we talk about every year, Derby Day is such a big day for many reasons. Obviously, ignoring the Kentucky Derby part of it, which is obvious, but like for us in harness racing, the Dexter Cup, kind of starts that Grand Circuit season, here in the States, and especially now it really starts it because now that the Borgata and the McIntyre, formerly the Blue Chip, are now after the Derby. That really does start the Grand Circuit action for the year here in the U.S. and overseas. Of course, it's a huge day at Åby, and it's a big weekend the next day over in Finland. So that'll also secure us a few more spots. Usually, quite often, we'll see the top 2 or 3 come through there. Next Wednesday at Solvalla will be another big race and an opportunity for one of those pink tickets. So we're definitely going to really see this field build out soon, and we'll be interested to see if we see any North American horses again this year. Of course, we did get to follow the journeys of Logan Park over there last year. I know things didn't work out, as they would have dreamed, but I do know in talking to the connections, they very much enjoyed their time there. And it was interesting. I didn't realize Doug McNair had been there previously in a driver's challenge several years before. So definitely interesting to chat with him about a return to Sweden. And I definitely think they enjoyed their experience, and glad they hopefully, someone else here in the North America might get an opportunity. I do know last year, the connections of, do you remember who it was? I forget who it was, but there was a U.S. horse that wanted to go, didn't work out, but
I don't remember. I know that they have to go early because of the quarantining and things like that. I mean, they need to be, if they're going, they need to be getting over there real soon. Yeah.
Yeah, that is the difficulty. I know, obviously we detailed last year Logan's Park journeys over there. I know we've interviewed John Campbell in the past. He's talked about the difficulties of horses, going over, then even the coming back part. I think Logan Park, it's fair to say, returned pretty well once he came back here in North America, but it's always an unknown. I mean,
it took him a while.
You just don't know, what's going to happen when you ship a horse that far over and come back. So it's definitely considerations, but I know anybody, I'm sure, connections-wise, would love to have the opportunity to go over there. And especially, again, I continue to say, as I say a lot of years here in North America, and specifically in the U.S., between, Nancy Tactor, Novus Fonstead, Marcus Melander, people with connections already over there, you would think would really like to hopefully take one back over there sometime.
Absolutely, and it would be great for us, too. I mean, but I do think that we would know by now. I'm not sure if you heard any buzz. I haven't read anything for anything to come over. It would have been nice to have like a Jiggy Jug go over there or something like that for the big race, but it just hasn't happened. We'll see what happens, but yeah, as of now, I don't know. I don't see anything going right now.
Yeah, Jiggy Jug was a shame. I really think if she was not injured, I do think at some point down the line they would have sent her. I think probably just sent her over there to race the Elite Lop and then stay over there. I think that's the benefit of someone like a Melander or a Tactor or a Svanstedt, that if they send something over there, they might just leave it there, and they've kind of reciprocated that too, right? With some horses that have come here, maybe race international, stayed in the U.S., we've seen it kind of both ways. I think there's a very good chance that that could be the scenario that ends up working out, to finally get a U.S. horse over there, basically just to stay afterwards, which, plenty of great racing in Europe. But regardless, Elite Lop coming up here about 37, 38 days away, whatever it is. It's coming up sooner rather than later. It'll be an exciting time as we work our way into Grand Circuit season. But next Monday at Yonkers, the 5th and final preliminary division of the MGM Borgata Pacing Series. This Friday, which if you're listening to this the day it's released, tomorrow, Friday, today, whatever day it is, you're hopefully watching the last leg of the Ursula McIntyre Pacing Series before they go to the final. But everybody's going to meet on Friday, May the 8th for the big money finals for Yonkers Raceway. I am Ray Cotolo. That's not Ray Cotolo there, Mike Barbosi, whoever else, whatever the show's been. We thank you for joining us, and hopefully you join us next time